Okay, picture this. Chicago, the Roaring Twenties. You've got the jazz, the energy, but underneath all that, there's this edge, something kind of dangerous.
Definitely. And that was Prohibition, wasn't it? This nationwide ban on making, selling, even moving alcohol.
Yeah,
Anything over what, 0.5%?
exactly. All thanks to the 18th Amendment and the Volstead Act. And Chicago, it just became this focal point.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the mayor famously said the city was wetter than the Atlantic Ocean. That wasn't just bluster, it really captured the situation.
Right, the sheer scale of defiance. So we're really diving into how trying to legislate something like drinking accidentally, well, it set off a powder keg in Chicago's underworld.
It really did.
Yeah.
Because the moment you ban something people want, you create a vacuum, right? A black
Yeah.
market. And in Chicago, organized crime just rushed in to fill it.
And bootlegging, making, and selling the illegal booze, it wasn't some small-time thing. It became a huge, sophisticated business, extremely profitable.
Huge money involved. And with that kind of cash up for grabs, you instantly get fierce competition.
Yeah, rival gangs popped up, battling for everything. Control over supply, who distributed where, territories. It got brutal.
It was like a business war, but,
Yeah.
fought with machine guns. Chicago became a real battleground. Names we still know today, Al Capone, Johnny Torrio, Frank Nitti,
Dino Banyan, George Bugs Moran, these guys became major players in this fight for control.
leading to the so-called beer wars. It sounds almost quaint, doesn't it? But it was deadly serious.
Definitely not quaint. It was about absolute control over the city's illegal liquor trade, block by block sometimes.
And, operating like that,
Hmm.
it required the authorities to look the other way, or worse.
Yeah, corruption was a massive problem. Local police, officials, some were paid off, some were maybe even directly involved. It let the gangs operate pretty freely.
Which really highlights the challenge faced by federal agents like Elliot Ness and his team, the untouchables.
Right. They were trying to cut through all that corruption, take down these powerful crime syndicates. It was a tough fight, a really uphill battle.
So, okay, all this illegal alcohol is flowing. Where's it actually being drunk? That brings us to the speakeasies.
Ah, the speakeasies, these secret bars just exploded across the city. They became the hidden social hubs.
And apparently, they were everywhere. Some people say they were almost as common as, like, coffee shops are today. You just needed to know the right door, the right password.
Or the right sign. There were these subtle clues, weren't there? Like a green door was supposedly a common signal.
Yeah, little whispers, ways to show you were in the know,
Yeah.
part of this kind of secret, illicit world. It must have been quite a thrill.
What's amazing is some of these spots, or at least the buildings, are still around. Like Burwood Tap, opened right after Prohibition ended, claims it's one of the oldest bars.
You can still go there. Or Harry Carey's Steakhouse now, that place has links, or rumors of links, to Capone and Nitti. Adds a whole layer of history when you walk in.
Totally. And Butch McGuire's open since the 60s, but the building itself has those speakeasy stories. Green Door Tavern, too. They even lean into it with a downstairs bar meant to feel like an old speakeasy.
Right, and Twin Anchors. That started in '32, just before repeal, disguised as Tante Lee soft drinks.
Soft drinks. Right. And they supposedly had a no dancing rule, maybe trying to keep things low-key.
Could be. Avoid attracting the wrong kind of attention. Then there's Halligan Bar, over 100 years old. Just a neighborhood place that survived it all. Shows how these spots become part of the community fabric.
It really does. But look, you can't talk Chicago Prohibition without talking Al Capone. He just looms so large over the whole era.
He really became the face of it, didn't he? The quintessential American gangster. Even today, the image people have of a mob boss. A lot of that comes from Capone.
For sure. His peak was around, 1925 to 29? He was brilliant at cultivating a public image, even a notorious one. The press couldn't get enough of him.
But he wasn't always Al Capone, the Chicago mob boss. He was born Alphonse Gabriel Capone in Brooklyn. His parents were Italian immigrants. His dad, a barber. His mom, a seamstress.
So, not exactly born into crime. But he got involved young with street gangs in Brooklyn, like the Junior 40 Thieves, the Bowery Boys, eventually a Five Points gang in Manhattan.
And that's key, because that's where he met Johnny Torrio and Frankie Yale. They really took him under their wing, mentored him in the business of crime.
Taught him the ropes, and even his nickname, Scarface, that came from a fight in a Brooklyn bar.
Yeah, the Harvard Inn on Coney Island. Got into it with a guy named Frank Galluccio over his sister. Ended up getting slashed. Apparently, Capone hated the nickname.
Hated it. He used to lie and say he got the scars in the war. Shows how image conscious he was, even about that.
He also started a family back then. Married Mee Coughlin in Brooklyn. They had a son, Sonny. And guess who the godfather was?
Let me guess. Johnny Torrio.
Johnny Torrio. Shows how tight those early connections were.
So Torrio calls him out to Chicago. That's the big move.
That's the turning point. He comes to Chicago to work for Torrio, and through, well, a mix of ruthlessness, smarts, and violence, he climbs the ladder incredibly fast.
Eventually taking over from Torrio, becoming the top boss, controlling bootlegging, gambling, prostitution, a massive criminal empire.
Which brings us to probably the most infamous event tied to him, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, February 14th, 1929.
Chilling. 7 guys from Bugs Moran's rival Northside gang just lined up against a wall and machine gunned down. Capone was actually in Florida at the time.
Right, he had an alibi, but everyone knew or assumed it was his doing. Retaliation, most likely. Moran's gang had been hijacking his liquor shipments.
The sheer brutality of it, men dressed as cops doing the killing. It shocked everyone. Even in violent Chicago, this was different.
It really solidified Capone's reputation for ruthlessness, but it also increased public pressure. People were demanding action.
But it wasn't the bullets that got him in the end. It was the books.
Kind of ironic, isn't it? After all the violence, it was the IRS, specifically a unit led by Elmer Ira. They went after him for tax evasion. President Hoover himself wanted Capone taken down.
So they finally got him, convicted on tax charges, sent to Alcatraz in '34.
Yeah, his power was broken. He was eventually released due to poor health. Neurosyphilis had taken a heavy toll. He died in 1947 from cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
A pretty dramatic rise and fall.
And the era he defined, Prohibition. It left such a deep mark on Chicago, changed the city forever, really.
You really can't separate modern Chicago from its Prohibition history. The gangsters, the speakeasies, they're baked into the city's identity. It's mythology.
And even though Prohibition officially ended December 5th, 1933, the 21st Amendment came in.
And the Berghoff restaurant got the city's first official liquor license back. A historic moment.
Right. But even with repeal, the legacy of that era just endures. The stories, the atmosphere.
It's still this incredibly captivating chapter of Chicago history. People all over the world are fascinated by it. It was a truly unique, chaotic time.
So looking back, Prohibition in Chicago gave us these larger-than-life gangsters, this whole secret world of speakeasies, and the enduring legend of Al Capone.
Yeah.
A city totally transformed.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? About unintended consequences. How laws, even ones made with good intentions, can sometimes backfire spectacularly.
Or maybe about the allure of forbidden things. Why do we sometimes gravitate towards what we're told not to do?
It's a deep question. And you can still feel echoes of it in Chicago today, walking down certain streets, visiting those old bars.
Yeah, it's a history that's still alive in some ways. It really continues to shape how we think about crime, about laws, about society itself. Just fascinating stuff.